And I am here actually on behalf of a colleague of mine who wanted to talk about coding experience for you, but he got sick, so he got me with boring management stuff because I am so not a programmer. I thought about a topic in exchange for coding and came up with the global journey of attending conferences and getting all the content that we heard already to people, to investors, to publishers, and how this actually works in order to sign a publishing deal. So you heard me speaking before. I'm working for Mipumi at the moment. I have almost 25 years of experience, worked mainly in Austria, spent some time abroad. And you also heard that before. For whatever reason, I could not dodge and became chair of, or I'm currently chair of the PGDA. But we're about to talk about Mipumi. Established 2009, so we're around for some time now. We're located in Vienna, around 55 people, and we have 3 business pillars that we relate to. So please take everything that I tell you with a bit of grain of salt, because it is coming from a larger indie studio, but a lot of the logic that I'm going to explain is also applying for 1 or 2 person teams. So Mipumi is mainly driving our business through co-development and work for hire. We're quite successful there. And we would like to, like everyone else in this room, express ourselves through the medium games and create games for our own. Unfortunately, we're not that successful on the last pillar, but we can afford a non-successful story with feeding that with the other 2 pillars. So BizDev, this is tough part, right? You need to get out there. You need to talk to people. You need to convince them about your idea to get support, money, whatever, marketing, distribution support. Publishing is not only about financing. We should be aware of that. So what is actually business and business development? For most, you need to understand it's a long game. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Why? Because it is about relation and very personal. You're going to meet people at conferences over and over and over again, and you need to convince them that your team, your idea is something worth following. And it's building up a network of contacts. So even today, or not even, sorry, that is negative touts, Game Dev Days card. So today, when you're here for the first time, you meet a lot of people. You speak to them, and you might meet them again next year. And next year, when you're here the first time, you're the second time here, you meet even more people. And when you are new to the industry, you will speak maybe to more junior people on your same level. But you need to remember that these junior people in 5 to 8 years from now might be in a decision-making position. And when you keep the chemistry, the relationship over the years, these people in the future will maybe in the position of signing a contract with you. So that's the reason why it's a long game and it's building up a network over time. Sorry, I need to get breath. And it's also important that it's not about one project. You need to understand that scouts from publishers are interested in you as a team, in you as a person. So what you need to sell is a success, not only of one project, but the potential of more that is coming in the future. And that's the reason why it's also important to be persistent in your communication and let people know about the progress, about the achievements that you have moving forward so that they can keep you on the radar, and at one point they will be there and need you or need something that you can provide, and then you're in a good position to sign something. Yeah. And taking the fine gentleman on the right, be persistent in a nice way. So we know a little bit about business development now. We need to apply that learnings and that knowledge. And where do we do that? At conferences. So When I started 25 years ago, there was basically nothing. There was no community. There were no smartphones not invented yet. There was no community and no community events in Austria. And there were certainly only a few conferences globally. Today you have the big advantage that Johanna and her team are so nice to host us once a year with the conference that we can meet. And there are the local meetups. There are conferences in your region, in your country, in the neighboring countries. So there's a lot of things to choose from, but you need to be smart which conferences you attend. Because we all know time and budget are limited, so you need to be smart what to choose. So I would suggest to just create an overview of conferences that are available, sort them by region that will drive your budget decision making, and then also sort them by category, because there are conferences that are focusing on business development, there are conferences focusing on development where you can exchange with like-minded people, get critical feedback, as we heard before. And you can also attend conferences where you speak to consumers, as we also heard from Tova before. Raw feedback with no filter, which is, as we heard, hard sometimes, but it's extremely beneficial because you're talking to your consumers that are actually buying your content in the end. And starting small, starting with a regional conference, start presenting something small to get confident in what you do, how you pitch, how you talk, how you present, and then enlarge your circle. What I mean is, it might not be the best idea to start with GDC. It's quite expensive, and it might not be the right meeting or the conference for you. Maybe it's a maze. It's an indie conference. It's close by. It only needs a little bit of travel budget. And there are lots and lots of other conferences that you can choose from. This list is definitely not complete, but it is a good idea where you could start and kind of pick what is good for you. So we know about business development. We know that we can apply that at conferences. Now we need to understand how we get to conferences and how we get our content to conferences. And like everything else in life, it's about planning. And you need to understand that the conference schedule that you made before is going to help you with your development process, with the development phases. This is because conferences are given milestones. They don't change. It's a hard deadline. You know them in advance. You know that you need to provide a playable, a pitch deck, kind of assets you would like to start communicating before. So you know that in advance. And it's the unfortunate thing also in very professional, very large companies that at one point the development team, the producer, the managers realize, oops, there's Gamescom. Oops, there's whatnot. We haven't planned for that. We need an extra build. We need community assets or whatnot. And this is something you can easily avoid because you know those deadlines. You know those milestones. Make them part of your development plan. Plan around conferences. This is a bit old, but Mipumi is still working with that. Again, this is from a larger studio perspective, taking GDC into account, but you can exchange GDC and Gamescom with a maze or whatnot. So what we do is we know that we are attending those conferences, and we at Mipumi want to present a game from ourselves, own IP, to potential investors, publishers at all those large conferences, at least once a year. So we know that we have 5 months' time or 6 months' time between GDC and Gamescom, and we plan this phase accordingly so that we're not surprised by Gamescom in July. But we know that after returning from GDC, having first talks about a new concept, already schedule follow-up meetings for Gamescom, and then work with the feedback that we received at one conference, implement that into pitch decks, concepts, prototypes, whatnot, and present that in 6 months again, because you always need to show progress when you're talking to the same people twice. Exactly. Yeah. And this is, it's a lot to ask, But this is something that is kind of successful for us in the last 2 years, and we also needed some time to get to this point. We're trying to have more than one card up our sleeves. So we are not presenting one game anymore. Or, no, sorry, it's not about presenting, but we have more than one games in our portfolio when we meet people, because there are different publishers. Publishers have different needs, different requirements. One game might be from a budget range too large or too small. And it can be too small, because when you talk to a mid to large size publisher, they won't accept pitches, for example, for 250 or 500K. They're looking for games with 1 mil forward. So the database with the contacts that you're collecting should also include information about what publishers are looking for. What kind of genre? Are they signing this game or that game? Are they looking for that budget or that budget? That's super important, because if you know that you don't have the right game or concept, you don't need to meet with them. It doesn't make any sense. This is something that has been shown here already. Elena did that last year with showing how. This is our process, how we get concepts ready. We call this path to greenlight. And everyone at the studio can have an idea and can champion for that idea. Then it's presented at an all-hands-on-deck meeting. And the process starts with working on that idea. We have something called Amipumi Day, which is a creative day once a month, where we act with a quest board, and people can put a quest about their concept and idea on the board and ask for help. So a coder could ask for designers and artists to work on the game idea. If that is done and the first steps have been made, management is offering help with workshops, 3 different types in 3 different areas. And when these workshops are done and we help the idea on its way, there is a so-called greenlight meeting. It's very standard, also for larger publishers and larger studios, where a representation of the studio is part of that meeting, meaning all the disciplines are there, and we discuss what is presented. And if we feel as a studio that's the right project for us to move forward, it becomes an official Mipumi project, and we start self-funding the prototype and see that we have something, as shown before in the Visio timeline, that we have something to show to publishers and investors at the big conferences. And then the cycle starts with prototyping, trying to get the external money and funding, and then we start over again when we see that it's not succeeding. With that plan and with that process, we shipped 3 titles so far. And that's what I said before. We're very honest and transparent about that. We didn't make any money with all these games. So this is a quite expensive hobby for us. And the main goal for Mipumi is at one point to become commercially successful, which is looking for an audience for our games. We clearly haven't found it yet. We're also looking for genre and mechanics that we can kind of become more comfortable creating and repeating. And being faster in creating something. We are not there yet. Yeah, so this was at least 3 games that have been successfully shipped, but not commercially successful. And I wanted to take the time once, because we are also not criticized, but reminded very often that Mipumi is quite quiet about what we do. And I opened the chest with old stuff that didn't even make it to the concept phase, yes, but didn't make it to the shelves. So it's a long time ago. That's from 2011. We created a game called Cute Kingdom with cute creatures that we called Pumis back then. And 2011, multi-platform games, that was new. 2011. The idea was that small chunks of games could be started in the evening. You play on your desktop, on your PC at home, and then you continue the next morning on your way to the office on your mobile. And it's the same game. It's the save game is transferred to another platform. Seems very natural today, but 13 years ago that was new. There were also Facebook games back then. Came to prototype status, didn't make it. The only thing that we have left is a nice poster in our office and a project that is dear to our heart. The next big thing that we did, big thing in meaning of prototyping, and when I mean big, that is an investment of 6-digit numbers that we took up our own. A couch multiplayer game with 4 heroines in a realm of dragons, with the idea to steal from the dragons gold and ancient artifacts to move forward and have fun together. Prototype level, even we ported it even to VR, worked very well, but nobody wanted it. So again, nice key art left, but that's all of that. And the last big thing that we did that didn't make it is a mountaineering managing game, because our founder is a strong hiker, and once in his career he would like to do a mountaineering game. We at least created a prototype that is located, or not located, it's set in the very early days of mountaineering with very less technical, advanced, how do you call it, gear? Yeah. Made it to a prototype level. The achievement here is it's the first Austrian game ever that got a European funding. That is at least something. We were not able to make it click, and it felt not right for us as a studio. And that means that also when we tried to sell it, it didn't click with other people. So you really need to make sure that you are convinced about the stuff that you're doing to be able to convince other people to jump on the running train. Yeah, so this is the past. And I would like to continue with the transparency, what Bipumi is currently doing to address the criticism that we receive once in a while. So what do we currently have up our sleeves? Talking about the deck that we take to conferences. This is the most ambitious project that we ever started. It's called Vals. Tova mentioned it. It's a genre game. It's a Souls-like game where we try to get rid of blood and gore and exchange that with a princess fantasy, bright and shiny, and exchange fighting with dancing. Seems odd. There's a proof of concept playable that we have and that we are showing around for some time. Everybody loves the idea. Everybody says we should make it because they want to play it. Nobody wants to finance it at the moment. It's a different story. And we haven't given up on that yet. So we continue working on that and trying to improve what it shows here. And that is obviously, or not obviously, but maybe something that you also realized. It's getting tougher to sign stuff. And while a proof of concept or prototype was good enough last year, now people are saying, nice prototype, I'd like to see a vertical slice. And that is a huge investment and a risk for a studio, because talking about vertical slice, that is a large investment that you need to be willing to take the risk, and you need to be able to finance it yourself. So that's a tough call that we are, a tough time that we are in as developers or independent developers in the current industry situation. So it's about politics on the dance floor. It takes place after the Napoleon Wars, during the time of the Vienna Congress, and it's about not battling, but settling the fate of Europe on the dance floor and not on the battleground. That's the main idea for that. And lucky enough, We might not be super successful in being commercially viable with our games, but we're good at getting money from the EU. So this was also, the prototype was also financed partly from the creative media. And moving forward, I said that we invested a lot of money and never made money through the games. But obviously, we're still doing that because there are other reasons and KPIs that we meet, because the own IP that we are creating opened for us different doors. So we, in case you don't know, Mipumi is more known on the business side for engineering work. That is our main thing on AAA titles. And we were never perceived as multidisciplinary team that didn't have design and art experience. And with our own IP that we shipped, we are perceived in a different way. We get different offers now. We're invited to RFPs for larger projects that we would not have gotten if we didn't invest in own IP. So for us as a studio, it works out because we're getting money from another angle, even though we never broke even with our own IP. And this is something, I don't know, the younger ones of you might not even know. Philip Marlowe is a detective character invented by Raymond Chandler, a British author that wrote or invented this detective. The story is taking place in LA in the 30s and 40s. And the estate that is owning the license for Philip Marlowe saw a trailer from Flower Collectors, a detective game taking place in Barcelona, and said, we like the trailer, wouldn't you want to do something with the license and create a game? So we ended up with the Marlowe license and trying to create a game with our take on this older franchise that needs a lot of brushing because it's politically definitely not correct anymore with the books back then. And our take is changing the main character and making a female character out of it. And it's not Philip Marlowe, but Philippa Marlowe. And again, we got EU funding for it. So at least that is working well for Mipumi. Yeah. And we're very happy that we handed over the torch because the winning streak was over this year. But Salzburg took over from Vienna, and Salzburg brought home money from the EU. So we heard it before. There's money available. We heard that in the morning. Finding out what kind of funding opportunities are out there makes sense. It's costly from a time perspective to work on a submission for funding. But you need to take into account that you're getting tax money and you need to justify the investment from a taxpayer. Yes. And the last one that we showed at the Game Dev Meetup Vienna last Tuesday, we're changing a bit our strategy in not being quiet and going out in the open and tell people what we're working on, which is sometimes hard with the other pillars that we have, because normally we're not allowed to talk about anything that we do for other big clients. This is a game that's called Black Jacket, working title at the moment, and it's a roguelike deck building card game, and it's about gambling your way out of hell, because it's a game that is addressing addiction, and you find yourself in hell, and you're playing against opponents where you only see the hand, so the characters are represented by the hand, and through the game you realize that you're actually playing against people that you know from the past, that you hurt in the past through your addiction. And it's very ancient mythology style game where you're playing for coin in order to bribe the ferryman to bring you back into the world of the living. That's the purpose of the game. It's very early, we just started. Didn't get any funding for that yet. So we're not taking anything away. But these are things that we failed as a studio to get into a state where we are convincing people to invest or ship the game by ourselves. And these are the learnings that we made through this process by talking to people, learning how to build a deck, how to communicate, how to convince people about your idea. That is just a learning process. And when I look at pitch decks that we did 5 or 6 years ago, I would not show that to anyone anymore because they were really not that good. So we learned. So message is keep trying, keep working, and evolve, and just ask for feedback, either from fellow developers. Pitch as often as you can to whomever is willing to listen or not listening, or not willing to listen, because it will help you to improve yourself. And maybe one thing, I guess you thought about that, but when you go to a conference, don't rely on your laptop. Have a company deck, a project deck on your phone, because you will most likely bump into someone and you need to be able to pitch any second because you don't have much time. So put everything on the cloud storage. Don't forget to download it to your phone as well. And when you meet someone, put out the phone and start pitching. That's what you need to do. It sounds stupid, I know, but this is what's happening. That's the good reason why present meetings are back, because there's a lot of coincidences that happen in order to sign a project. There's one very good example from fellow Viennese developer. The founder signed something because he met a guy on a fast train in Japan from Tokyo to Kyoto. He sat next to a guy from a publisher. They talked an hour and he signed a 2 million deal on that train ride. So you never know where the money lies and you never know where the opportunity is. That's the important message there. Good. I'm wrapping up. So you need to understand the life cycle of your pitch. It's a bit of a not controversial, contradicting statement that I'm going to make now. There's one thing you need to know when it's done. So when you showed it in the cycle that I showed you before, twice or 3 times, and nobody likes it, good chances are that also the 4th time people won't like it. Put it away, start something fresh. As Tove said, kill your darling. It's hard, but you need to move on because you're just wasting time and resources. On the other, start something fresh early. That is also related on the business side. If you are happy to get funding and even a project signed, don't wait until you're in the shipping release window to start thinking about a new idea. That is too late. Lots of studios failed by starting too late and looking for funding for the next project not early enough. So you need to be able to secure funding for you and your team actually already at the beginning of the production of the current title, because you know it takes time to sign something. Yeah, on the other hand, that's the contradiction. Don't give up too early, right? It's your darling, it's your dream. So if there's a chance, work for it, fight for it. Because think of movie land and Hollywood. Think of how long sometimes the script is in a drawer, and then the time is right, the topic is right from a zeitgeist perspective, and then a director comes, actors come in, and then you get funding, and 12 months later the movie is in the cinema. So this could also happen, right? And as an example for Howl that I showed before, the game was well perceived and received. People liked it. Nobody wanted to fund it, even though it was a very small investment for everyone. So we said, okay, let's do it ourselves. And we finance everything and we do self-publishing. And then very late, actually a month before we wanted to release on Switch and PC, with the regular check-ins that we do on the BizDev side with all our contacts, we do this per quarter. We just contact all our business contacts once a quarter and say hello, send them an update, tell them about our achievements that we had, a new release or whatnot, a new game on a new platform, on a new engine. Just inform them, because you might be right on time that they need something when you land in the inbox or when you schedule a regular update call. And in this case, Howl was signed with Astragon. We had a regular check-in, and they said then, well, listen, we have an opening in our product portfolio for this year. We need a game, a small one. We would like to try something new. And then we really, in a short time, signed a deal. That's what I mean is even very late, where we didn't think that we were able to sign anything and would do it on our own, we got a publishing deal in the end. And that helped us to go full in, meaning that we were able to address all platforms, because ourselves, who would have been available or willing to take the risk of going for Switch and PC. And in the end, we released on mobile, and which was a huge achievement for us as a studio on Xbox and PlayStation. We are a licensed developer for all platforms. That's what we do. For partner companies, we even have the hardware in our studio, which means it's a benefit when you talk to AAA clients because they don't need to send you hardware to develop on. But we never shipped our own game on PlayStation and Xbox. So that was a huge win and achievement for us as a studio. So even though it's hard and even though don't stay too long, it's a thin line to walk on, but don't give up too early. So what you saw is, as I said at the beginning, our way. And that's definitely something for a larger indie studio. It might not apply 100% on a one-person company, for example, but the logic of maintaining contacts, keeping databases, collecting information, that is something that applies also for a one-person company. Keep thinking in those cycles, not only for development, but also for your business. That's the important part, to stay alive, to stay sustainable, to make sure that if you have a team, that your team is secured and safe. Even though you need to kill your darling at one point, don't give up too easily. But I think that nobody in the room does that anyway. And as I said, there might be an opportunity waiting around the corner that you could not foresee. But what is really important, and even though it sounds very old school and like a dinosaur, you should at least have a plan B, potentially a plan C, and if you're very good, you have a plan D as well, in case anything else doesn't work, because that is also something that keeps you alive on the long run. And as Tova said, enjoy being a game developer, enjoy to do what you like, feel, at least I do that, privileged to be in the position to work in the game industry, to work with creative people, and even though it's sometimes hard and cold, keep the positive things and the warm energy at your hand that will help you through dark times. Thank you.